the spirit of openness and transparency, we welcome you once again to yet another of the Premier's monthly press conferences. With us this morning, we have members of the press corps here with us, and we are extending a warm welcome to each and every one of you. The format for this morning is as per usual. The Premier will make his statement, and you, the members of the press corps, will be given the opportunity to ask your question. In asking your question, we kindly ask you to identify the agency who you work for, just in case we have to present further information after the press conference. You kindly ask to turn your phones on silent, because that might just disturb the operation. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming to the podium the Honorable Premier of Nevis, Mark A.G. Brantley.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Premier's monthly press conference. I'm very happy to be here this morning to have another in this series. It is a commitment that we have made, and a commitment that obviously we are intending to keep, that every month we come and we have an engagement with members of the press. We think that this is a manifestation of our commitment to good government. Let me start by congratulating Mr. Orion Stapleton. He's the son of our permanent secretary, Dr. Ernie Stapleton. We gather he's been offered and accepted a research position in the computational lab at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, as we know, one of the leading tech schools in the world. He has just completed his first degree at the University of the West Indies. I always like to congratulate people, particularly young people, because it demonstrates that our young Nevisians are, in fact, doing well and making strides at home and abroad. And so we send congrats to Mr. Orion Stapleton and his family. Let me also congratulate Mr. Jervin Swanston. He has successfully completed his MBA. We all know Jervin. He works at the Nevis Electricity Company, and I would want to extend congratulations to him as well. A gentle reminder to our non-national community. As part of our COVID-19 response, the government did grant an amnesty for work permit and residency, which ends at the end of this month, in August, in a few days. All non-nationals are asked to use the time left to regularize themselves. Work permits, let us recall, were reduced from $2,500 to $1,000, and annual residency was reduced from $1,500 to $750. Now, I want the non-national community to listen to me carefully. We did this in order to assist in a difficult environment with COVID. You have had 3 months to regularize your affairs and regularize your status here. Once the end of August comes, the regular fees will apply. That is, you will now go back to $2,500 for a work permit and $1,500 for annual residency. Not only that, but the immigration officials will enforce the law. I can't say this more plainly. We have given time and time again an opportunity for individuals to regularize themselves, regularize their status. And so we urge the non-national community to comply. So the end of August, that's only a few days left. That is the period of time that you have left. We are very pleased that the park at Pinnis has started in earnest, and the update has come. The construction activities are well underway. The entire site, 8.5 acres, is fenced with permanent chain link fence along the gut in the south and along the western boundary, and a temporary green fence, green metal sheeting, along the eastern and northern boundary. The entire site has been stripped of its vegetation and soil. It's been treated to rid it of insects, particularly ants. The excavation of foundation of 2 buildings to house restrooms, storerooms have been dug. Preparation, including excavation in the area where the open-air amphitheater will be built, is in progress. The contractor of note is now advertising various categories of work, vacancies for various categories of work, and they're indicating that they will require some 30 to 50 workers. So if you're out there and you're interested, in the areas that they're looking at to employ people are steel benders, carpenters and joiners, masons, laborers, stone wall builders, electrical and plumbing technicians, and subcontractors. So if you're interested in work at the Pinnis Park project, they are hiring. They say they want between 30 and 50 workers, steel benders, carpenters and joiners, masons, laborers, stone wall builders, electrical and plumbing technicians, and subcontractors. The numbers to call are 669-8374, 665-0645, or 766-6460, or you can visit their site at Pinnis. I say that because, of course, we understand that things are difficult on the island now in terms of jobs, and so those who can apply should apply to try to get some work there. I'm told that project will be nearly 2 years, and so it is a useful project and one that we are very committed to. I just want to update the members of the public of two recent developments coming out of the cabinet of the Nevis Island administration. The first is that we have been looking at our premiers past to determine what we can do in terms of offering them some concessions, some incentives for their service. They would have served in the highest position of the land here on the island of Nevis. And we have come up thus far with a duty-free concession on a vehicle for our past premiers. There was no policy in place. We've now put a policy in place that premiers past can access a duty-free vehicle every 5 years. That would be a vehicle of their choice, and we will waive duties and, of course, all other charges. And so any of the past premiers, there are only two, Mr. Parry and Mr. Amry. They can apply in that capacity as a past premier and would be granted that concession. I would want to commend the Cabinet of the Nevis Island Administration and my colleagues for coming up with this initiative to try and assist our past premiers and to recognize, of course, their contribution at the highest level of government on the island of Nevis. The second is, of course, we continue to seek to find ways to stimulate the economy and stimulate activity. I believe it was the last press conference that I announced what we had done in terms of concessions for construction. And I'm advised that there's been good uptake perhaps is a better expression, that people have been coming forward and are taking advantage of the opportunity to remodel their homes, to build homes, to put up commercial buildings, as the case may be. I would want to urge persons to continue. The Cabinet and the Ministry of Finance continue to brainstorm about what we can do. And we had a representation from some realtors that there was an issue that we had a lot of stock of homes, properties that were not selling. And the concern was they thought that perhaps because of the additional taxes that was a problem. So we have decided to waive the alien landholding license fee on the purchase of homes and existing buildings. Ordinarily, if you are a non-national, you will have to pay an additional 10%. We have decided to waive that fee, and so we will do so up until the 31st day of December 2020. The 31st day of December 2020, if there are purchases that will happen up until that date, then you will take the benefit for the next 3 months. And so we are hopeful that those who say that they have real estate that has not moved and can move, that real estate will move in the next 3 months, and we can get some activity in the real estate market. And so we have made that announcement, and we trust and hope that that will continue. Let me move on quickly to a few other matters. We are all very interested, of course, in our reopening of schools. I have confirmed just this morning with our new Minister of Education, Federal Minister of Education, the Honorable John L. Powell, that schools will open on the 7th of September. The teachers and staff turn out on the 7th, but students are expected to come on the 9th. There's a tremendous amount of work that has to be done before then. And we have already started that work. The Ministry of Education in Nevis has embarked on an extensive cleaning and sanitization project of all government schools on the island. During this all-out cleaning and sanitization effort, schools will have their walls, floors, ceilings, windows, doors, desks, chairs, and tables cleaned and disinfected. The Ministry of Education has contracted several cleaning companies from across the island to undertake this extensive cleaning and sanitization project. The ministry hopes that this cleaning and sanitization will help to alleviate any fears that parents may have in sending their children back out to school come September. The cleaning and sanitization of schools is just one of the measures that the Ministry of Education has put in place to ensure the health and safety of all students and staff in preparation for the opening of schools. During this week and next week, there will be a number of health protocol training and sensitization of the school reopening guidelines for educational officials, principals, deputy principals, teachers, school safety representatives, security officers, crossing guards, school bus drivers, and other staff. Principals and school management teams will also meet with parents to sensitize parents as to the protocols that would be in place once school reopens. All this, ladies and gentlemen, is in an effort to inform and engage all stakeholders in what is expected once we reopen schools on the 7th of September. Let me put now the appeal out to the general public that we would ask for your patience. We understand that you would want, of course, your children to return to school. We understand also that you would want them to return to a safe environment. I am concerned that we do things properly. And to do things properly, we recognize that we would require some time to get it right. These protocols are being developed. No country thus far has demonstrated that they've got it right. That is entirely right. There is no playbook for this. And so I'm asking for patience because I know it is common that when school is supposed to start and it doesn't start, there's a huge hue and cry in the public space. So I am appealing now for patience because what we want to achieve is a safe and secure school environment for our teachers, our students, and all who go there to work and to learn. And so I ask for your patience. I can tell you that our time is short. The protocols are still being adjusted and developed, and I believe that they will go through ongoing adjustment as we try to get it right. Furniture had to be ordered, desks and all of those, because we now have to do spacing and do things differently, and the schools have to be retrofitted. And the cleaning, because I know there were some people who had come forward saying that they wanted to offer their services for cleaning, just to indicate that the cleaning that we're talking about at this stage is what they call a deep clean. We are cleaning in a way that is deep cleaning, and so we require specialized equipment. They're using a lot of steam and things of that nature. So I just wanted to make that clear to the members of the public and the press. Let me move quickly. You would have heard, of course, that there was some COVID sensitization training that was undertaken jointly between the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Tourism, and the Tourism Authority, the Nevis Tourism Authority. That troika of organizations got together to put in place some training. That training began on July 27th. It ended on August 18th, and I'm pleased to say that some 1,300 persons in Nevis were able to benefit from that training. We were able to train people in the accommodation sector, hotels, guest houses, condos, apartments, etc., eating establishments, restaurants, bars, snackets, pizzerias, retail, souvenir shops, art and craft vendors, tourism, transport and tour guides, immigration, port, customs, attraction, destination and management companies, wedding planners. We had a wide cross-section of persons who were subjected to this training and exposed to this training, and some 1,300 persons on Nevis. We understand that the same process is happening on St. Kitts, but we are happy that we have concluded our process on Nevis at this point. Some of the topics covered included balancing safety and customer service, proper use of personal protective gear, signage, symptoms and appropriate response to COVID-19 in the workplace, cleaning, sanitizing, disinfection, etc. The initial training, please note, will be followed by a second round of training beginning September 14th. That will be via the train-the-trainer method, where the various tourism entities will select representatives to receive more detailed, practical, hands-on COVID-19 training. They will then be expected to go back to their respective businesses and train their colleagues. Tourism business will be required to create their own COVID-19 plan. The ministry, of course, will provide online resources that they could use as a guideline. The COVID-19 task force will go out. It will inspect tourism entities for compliance with established protocols, and those meeting the required standards will be issued a travel assured seal. These preparations are in advance, of course, of the intended reopening of our borders, which is slated for October of this year. It is also a good time, members of the press and members of the public, to advise that we have successfully concluded our taxi and tour operators training course. We had a huge jump in terms of people attending this course and people who have shown the interest. The last course we held was in 2018, so there was some pent-up demand, but the highest number of participants that we ever had was 40. This time we had 85 participants. Of those 85, 72 completed the course successfully. They had a very nice ceremony yesterday where the certificates were awarded. I would want to thank all 72 participants who successfully completed the course. Of those 72 of note, 15 were women, and the average age, I'm told, of the participants was 35 years old. We would normally charge $100 EC for the course, but given the circumstances, the ministry took the decision to waive that charge, and so the course this year was offered for free. Many of you may know already that the month of July was what we call Plastic-Free July. Plastic-Free July. And that was celebrated throughout the Federation. One of the activities that they had was repurposing plastic, and they had a competition. It therefore gives me great pleasure to tell you that in the children 4 to 12 section, Mr. Kelleran Libert of Nevis placed first in the household items division. In the 13 and over category, Mrs. Jennifer Libert placed second in the household items division. And in the 13 and over category, Miss Kelsey Libert placed third in the beauty accessories division. Libert, all one family. They did extremely well, and I want to congratulate young Kelleran, young Kelsey, and Mrs. Jennifer Libert for their involvement in this. So I think it has worked well, and I wish them continued success in their innovation. Now, let us switch very quickly, as I'm trying to move through my information as quickly as I can, to the Ministry of Health and Gender Affairs. 50 frontline healthcare workers. This is a good news story. I hope this will get a headline. That 50 frontline healthcare workers will be treated to $100 pedicure voucher. Compliments Sherry's Beauty World and Caribbean Foundation for Children, Inc., a non-profit organization that provides assistance to people throughout the Caribbean with a specific emphasis on health, education, and community needs. A handing over ceremony took place on 11th August 2020. The directors felt it was a good way to give back to the hard-working health professionals who are often on their feet. That is why it's a pedicure. They're often on their feet, working to keep us safe. And we celebrate Sherry's Beauty World and Caribbean Foundation for Children, Inc., for providing these vouchers, $100 pedicure, for 50 frontline workers. I think that is significant, and I think it's a very, very noble gesture to our healthcare workers. On August 12th, we saw the official closing ceremony for the first business boot camp hosted by Gender Affairs. 14 persons, 11 women and 3 men, participated in an intense 6 weeks of training. Participants were introduced to areas of business management, such as business plan writing, marketing, financing, technology, and operations. They were thereafter encouraged to access funding to the Small Enterprise Development Unit, CEDU, which is currently accepting applications for small business loans, which can be used for business development or expansion. And this is a program that we've talked about. I'm sure you've heard it a million times, but we were able to secure some $5 million, which we're seeking to unlend to small businesses, small entrepreneurs, especially women and youth. And we are lending up to $100,000 at 4% interest. And so we invite persons to take advantage of those opportunities to start their own business. If you wish to apply, then CEDU's offices are by the Credit Union building in Charlestown. Some more good news. I hope another headline. The Ministry of Health is now in possession of 2 brand new ambulances. One procured by the Nevis Island Administration and the other through the annual generous donation from the St. Kitts and Nevis Social Security Board. These 2 vehicles are critical elements in the delivery of emergency and pre-hospital care. The official handing over ceremony for the unit purchased by Social Security is scheduled to take place tomorrow, Friday, 28 August 2020. And again, a government that continues to invest and to see the critical needs of our people and to respond. This will be the first time in the history of Nevis that we've had 2 brand new ambulances delivered at the same time to serve our people. I've seen them, and I think the public will be pleased to see them as well. It took some months, but they're finally here, and we're grateful to God for that. The Department of Gender Affairs continues its quest to empower individuals through a series of soft furnishing skills, training workshops under the theme Women Empowering Women. The department is currently accepting applications from persons interested in the art of crochet. So if you want to learn how to crochet, some men too, you want to learn how to crochet, you can apply. You're asked to contact the Department of Gender Affairs, 469-5521, extension 6752, 6291 or 6750 for additional information. If I can switch from the development of people to the development of infrastructure and the Public Works Department. We are very pleased, ladies and gentlemen and members of the press, to announce that Brownhill Road is now complete. Let me say it again, for all the people in Brownhill. Brownhill Road is now completed. The final paving was done on the 17th of August 2020. I'm also very pleased to announce that Craddock Road is now also completed. So those were 2 significant projects that this government had undertaken, and I know there were some concerns expressed about delays. We were badly delayed due to COVID, but those roads are now done. I am very grateful, and I want to commend Minister Spencer Brandt, who has been the most effective Minister of Public Works that we have seen in many years. He has done a lot in a very short space of time. I want to commend him. I want to commend his various departments, those who work with him in Public Works, those who work in the Water Department, the good people at Nevlik, who are often engaged during these work projects as well. I want to congratulate all of them and say that they are doing excellent service for the people of Nevis. Nevlik is now celebrating 20 years of existence. And I want to congratulate Nevlik as well and to thank them for the radical improvement in electricity delivery to the people of Nevis that we have seen. And it's important to thank these people. You know why? Whenever the electricity goes off, we take to social media, we take to the call-in stations, and we have most and many things to say. Very rarely do we take to social media and the airwaves to say we appreciate the work that these people have done. Nevlik's system stood up well in the recent storms that were threatened, and there was minimal interruption. Why? Because they have continued to redevelop and redesign the system to build in more redundancy, so that what applied in the past and what obtained in the past, where power would be lost to large bits of the island, that is no more. And so we want to congratulate Nevlik, wish them a happy 20th anniversary. They will be having, I'm told, a week of activities, and I've said to them to keep the activities as cheap as they can, bearing in mind the difficulties that the island is experiencing. So Nevlik, we congratulate them. As I mentioned activities, let me segue to the independence activities, which are anticipated, of course, by all and would normally occur for our independence of September 19th. This year, the Nevis Island Administration has taken the decision that we will limit the extent of activities for independence due to COVID, due to certain fears that have been expressed, but also due to the real situation that we face financially in the administration. And so what we are proposing this year, there will be patriotic events in the schools, and we shall have the usual parade at the ETW Park. Some differences this time around, however, those being awarded on independence will perhaps have separate seating, and instead of having the toast to the nation that we would have after, where we mix and mingle, we will simply have a takeaway package for those who are there. So we are trying to limit the time and limit the contact, the person-to-person contact in light of COVID. In addition, I regret to advise that the annual cocktail that we would have at the residence of the Deputy Governor General, that after discussions with her, we have decided to forego that particular event this year. This is not to say that we do not recognize, cherish, and honor all those who have gone before, cherish and honor our independence, those who have worked hard for us to achieve that independence, but this is the state in which we find ourselves. This is the circumstance in which COVID has brought us. And so I am advising that we will have a very low-key affair this year in terms of our independence celebrations. And I ask the public's patience with us and their understanding in the circumstances. As I mentioned that and the difficult state in which the island finds itself in terms of its revenue, and as a consequence of that, its ability to continue to deliver goods and services at the level to which we all have become accustomed, I would just want to advise that the administration will, over the course of the next few weeks, be looking to see where it can cut some costs. This is never something that people want to hear, but it is something that is necessary. We have fought very hard to ensure that our staffing remains at acceptable levels. We have fought very hard to ensure that each and every payday that our workers get paid on time and in full. We are not at this point considering any layoffs or retrenchment, but we are looking to see how we can cut the fat, so to speak, how we can reduce our monthly expenses as much as possible so as to not exacerbate further our debt position on the island. But we are faced with some difficult times, and some difficult decisions naturally lie ahead. We will hear more as we go, but just to put everybody on alert that we are looking at ways that we can limit, and where there is discretionary spending or spending that might not be critical, we are seeking to avoid that at this time until things improve. And so I just wanted to put that on record so that we are aware. Just also to advise, as we have been advising, that Public Works, having been finished now with the two major projects they were undertaking, Brownhill and Craddock Road, that we are now looking for Public Works to relocate their resources and pay some attention to Butlers and to Bath. And so the people of Butlers and Bath, you have suffered long, as many others have, but you are now firmly on the list of the works that ought to occur next. The Water Department has been doing an excellent job here on the island of Nevis. They've been engaging excellent work on behalf of the people of Nevis. Sometimes their work goes unheralded, and I always take time to recognize them. We say water is life because it is, and there's nothing more frustrating, I know, for all of you than when you lose water. Nevis has been blessed in that we have not had too many problems with water, and that has largely been due to the fact of the investments that have been made over the years in water. The $30 million CDB project has come to a close, but we have continued in terms of new lines, in terms of development. We have, of course, decided to install at Hamilton a filtration plant to treat water there to make it potable and to make it comply with WHO standards. And so that Hamilton filtration project is proceeding. We were delayed because the technicians who were to come in from overseas to set up the plant, clearly because of COVID, there was some delay. But we're making good progress with them now, and we hope that they should be on island, and when they get here, that only minimal work will be required. We have done work in Upper Webbs Estate, Harris Village. We have done work in Horatio Heights. We have done work in Cades Crescent, Westbury, and we have done work up in Stony Grove. And we continue to work hard in the context of delivering reliable water supply to the people of Nevis. I'm very proud now that no area of Nevis is out of water. Let me put that differently. All areas of Nevis have access to pipe-borne water from government. I think that is remarkable. And that shows that over the years, and I don't take all the credit, successive governments have worked over the years on delivering a better water supply to the people of Nevis. And so we don't hear any cries in Nevis about water as often as perhaps you hear elsewhere, because we have invested over the years and continue to invest in the development of the water system here on the island. And I'm very proud again of Minister Brand and his team, those at the Water Department, for the excellent work that they continue to do. Just to advise as well that the chlorination units that are located at Spring Hill, Stony Hill, and Camps have been put back into service. The public should know that these units are designed to dispense chlorine into the distribution network at a controlled rate. And if you ask why chlorine, I'm told that that is how you treat the water to ensure that the water that we consume complies with international standards. The chlorine, I have a note here that tells me the chlorine is in fact to ensure that the waterborne pathogens are removed. And so the water that you consume, you could have that confidence that the water that you're consuming is good quality and that it complies with all international standards. Let me switch quickly to the Department of Labor. Most workers who have been laid off in March 2020 and were not recalled would have submitted a claim for severance or are in the process of doing so. Most of these workers would have been, of course, from our hospitality sector. We continue to empathize with those who have been laid off. As Premier of Nevis, I get calls daily, inquiring about jobs, inquiring about opportunities. My response is never a response that people want to hear, but it is the truth, that the government cannot employ everyone. And the government has no capacity to simply employ those who have been laid off elsewhere. And that is why we're seeking to do other things. We're seeking to encourage persons to invest in themselves, to start a small business, to generate income through other means, because the government is simply incapable of employing everybody. So we empathize with those who have been laid off. We are hopeful that the reopening of the borders will see a reopening of the hotel sector. We are grateful to our brothers and sisters from St. Kitts especially, who continue to come over, particularly on weekends in large numbers, and who have been populating the smaller hotels in Nevis that have opened. We hope they will continue to do so. Brothers and sisters in St. Kitts, if you're listening to me, Nevis is in New Miami. Come over, enjoy yourselves, learn about your country, do all the wonderful things that Nevis has to offer, experience it all. So we continue to encourage that, what they refer to, I gather, as staycation. Even some of you here in Nevis, you have a little disposable income and you're tired of staying in your home, go to a hotel and spend the weekend. Celebrate your anniversary, your birthday. But go out and let us invest in each other, because that is going to be critical if we are to recover. So I empathize with those who have been laid off and encourage those who can to continue to contribute and to help each other. We also had the very sad news that the First Caribbean International Bank has decided to close its Nevis branch effective November 30th. So when you thought the news was bad, you get more bad news. Now, I should say and go on record to say that there was no consultation or discussion with the NIA on this matter. Nor do we have any control over whether a bank or any other business decides to close, because that is a business decision. And so First Caribbean has taken a business decision that it will close its doors in Nevis after many decades of operation, and that they will close effective November 30th. In terms of staff, we advise that First Caribbean had 7 full-time staff members and 2 contracted workers. Of those, we gather, only 1 staff member has been offered a position on St. Kitts, where apparently First Caribbean will continue their operations. We are not yet clear how they will service their clientele in Nevis, but I suppose in the days and weeks ahead, we will find out more. Luckily for Nevis, we have many other banks that are operating here. And so customers will certainly have an option if they choose to exercise that option. We have, of course, our own bank, the Bank of Nevis. We have the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank. We have, is it RBTT, that is also operating here. And we have Republic Bank, which is operating. We also have the credit unions that operate. So we have options on Nevis, thankfully, that we will not be without banking services because First Caribbean has opted to leave. And we are hopeful that whatever decision prompted First Caribbean to leave, that in the fullness of time, they may see the wisdom in returning. But for now, they've indicated that they're leaving and that the branch will close November 30th. And customers and businesses who do business with First Caribbean will have to adjust accordingly. Some, I'm not sure if it's bad or perhaps maybe neutral news, that we have also been advised that TDC has decided to close their drinks depot. And so the drinks depot at TDC is closing. TDC will no longer be a distributor of drinks for the breweries in St. Kitts. We all know that you could go to TDC and get your beers, your sodas, etc. They are closing that aspect of the business. The good news, to, I suppose, counterbalance that bad news, is that the brewery will now be distributing its products directly on Nevis. So TDC on the one hand is closing its distribution, its depot, but the breweries is opening on Nevis to distribute drinks directly to Nevisians. And so, again, there ought to be no disruption for the people of Nevis in terms of their access to products from the brewery. The Canada Agricultural Program is still going on. I want to send out the clarion call to persons who might be interested in going to Canada to work in their agricultural program. You're asked to visit the Department of Labor if you have an interest. Please do not wait and when the deadline is passed so you didn't know. If you have an interest, you're asked to go and register that interest with the Department of Labor if you want to go to Canada to work with their farm program. The Department of Youth would have had its inaugural Youth Impact 12 Awards on International Youth Day, which was Wednesday, August 12, 2020. The purpose of this really is to celebrate our young people in different fields. The awardees were Melissa Clark for Sports Excellence, Brandon Powell for Information Technology, Verna Grant for Educational Lifelong Learning, Ravina Prasad for Agriculture, Delcia Burke for Volunteerism, Cecilia Cressy Stanley, Entrepreneurship with Specialty in Culinary Arts. We congratulate the awardees and the Department of Youth for hosting what I'm advised was a very impressive ceremony. We also have, I believe, some other good news to celebrate. On Tuesday, the 4th of August, 2020, we think it was a great day for cricket on Nevis when the Livingston Sergeant Cricket Practice Facility was officially opened at the ETW Park. The facility will cater to the coaching of cricket on Nevis and will seek to build on the talent of young cricketers and significantly improve their skills. The facility is the brainchild of former West Indies cricketer and local hero, Mr. Keith Arterton, who collaborated with a number of partners, including the Department of Sports, to bring the project to completion. High commendation must be given to Keith Arterton, a former West Indies cricketer, for the timely initiative, and congratulations are in order for former outstanding Nevisian cricketer, Mr. Livingston Sargent, who the facility is named after. The Ministry of Social Development, their Social Services Department has brought to a completion their YTS, Yes to Success Youth Training and Diversion site located here at Pinnis. The site will offer a much-needed home for continuing services being delivered to at-risk youth over the past 4 years as the government continues to provide meaningful alternatives to steer these youth to a positive path. Programs include, among others, training in construction-related skills, training in hospitality industry preparedness, job preparedness sessions, paid work internships, connecting youth to one-time short-term work while they seek full-time employment, anger management and crime prevention related sessions for youth. Young persons or parents who wish to apply for current and upcoming programs at Yes to Success may contact the Department of Social Services. The site will see its official opening, ladies and gentlemen, in September. And let me just take a moment to congratulate the Honorable Eric Rohan Evelyn. He has always been in the service of people and come into politics, as he likes to say, he was called by people to come. He has come successfully. He is now at the federal level and at the local level. And he has done an incredible job with the Department of Youth and Social Services, delivering services, particularly now in COVID-19, particularly in this pandemic where people are truly suffering and need that support system, that safety net. Eric Evelyn and his team have been there. And so I say congratulations to them, and may they continue to deliver to the good people of Nevis. I will leave it there, ladies and gentlemen, and take such questions as you may have. As usual, if you have no questions, then we'll end the press conference early. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good
Monique
morning.
Washington, St. Kitts Nevis Observer newspaper. You spoke about the cleaning of schools, well, the deep cleaning. How often will this deep cleaning take place at the schools? Also, as it relates to the Gingerland Secondary School, currently there is major constructions being conducted at the school. What is the NIA doing, or what measures are being taken to ensure that the students remain physically safe during the construction phase when school is open? NEVLEC, we understand that the general manager for NEVLEC has resigned. Can you give us an update as to who will be filling his position, and how will his leaving affect the day-to-day operation of, or I shouldn't say the day-to-day operation, or the full operations of NEVLEC? And NEVLEC offered its customers a reduction on its bill during the March to June period for 3 months. That time has now expired. Will NEVLEC continue or plan to expand or extend this reduction on bills for persons affected by COVID? Can you give us an update on the Newcastle Police Station as to when it will open, and did this project come in on budget? And you spoke about, the NIA finances and so on and so forth. Has the NIA considered approaching the IMF for help? And with the closure of First Caribbean International Bank, what does this say to international investors that plan to come and invest in the island? Thank you.
Okay, you've asked me enough questions, I think, to take us to the end of this press conference. Thank you, Ms. Washington from the Observer. The deep cleaning that we're doing at the schools is intended, I believe, to happen between every 6 months to every year. Just to explain that the deep cleaning with the steam and all of that we're using is intended to cleanse the schools of any thing that might be there, COVID, mold, whatever it may be. What we intend to do thereafter is to have a regular cleaning. Now, the public would know that at the schools we normally would have cleaners, but those cleaners are part-time, and they come only maybe for an hour or two in the afternoon normally. That is going to change. So at all the schools now we are going to have full-time cleaners. And so those persons will be responsible, and in the larger schools we may have more than just 1 or 2 persons. Those persons will be responsible for the ongoing cleaning of schools. So all throughout the day, the schools will be cleaned and sanitized. And we're now looking, of course, to ensure that we have the necessary budget in place to make that a reality. So the deep cleaning, that will be less frequent, maybe every 6 months to a year, but the everyday cleaning will occur for the schools. You talk about the construction at the Gingerland Secondary School. I'm assured that all safety protocols have been put in place. That just like any other construction site, as we had at CSS or anywhere else, that the contractors, in this case the contractor is LEFCO, they have been selected of those that put in bids on that project to do the TVET building there at the Gingerland Secondary School, and that LEFCO has put all the necessary safety precautions in place to ensure that the students there will not be impacted. And so we hope, of course, that there are no accidents, but all safety precautions have been put in place. NEVLEC, you said that the general manager has resigned. That is not, well, perhaps that is accurate, but not quite accurate. I say that to say he's leaving. The reason that he's leaving is not so much that he has resigned, which suggests that perhaps he is unhappy or doesn't want any longer to continue with NEVLEC. It is because the arrangement that we had, he had come to us from Lucilec, which is the St. Lucia electricity company. And Lucilec has asked him to return because Lucilec is saying that they need his services in his native St. Lucia. So he came and he gave us a year. It is shorter than we would have liked, but we understand the situation. And Mr. Pulte has done an excellent job for us, and we want to thank him for his service and wish him a safe return to his native St. Lucia and a good success in his new role at Lucilec, the St. Lucia Electricity Company. In terms of a replacement, I'm told by the board that the process is even now ongoing. And so they're doing their interviews, I suppose, they're doing their selections, and once I have information as to who will be the new manager at Nevlec, I certainly will make that announcement to the press and to members of the public. You asked about the extension of the concession. It's a question that we keep getting asked. But again, I want to remind the public that the government is running on empty right now. I don't think it's empty. We're running on fumes. Things are difficult. And we have tried our very best to provide a cushion, provide concessions, provide support to cushion the impact of COVID, which has happened to all of us. And so the question of do we extend concessions, that is a question that we are now considering what is possible and what we can do. Nevlec has suffered financially in a tremendous way as a result of the concessions that we asked them to give to the public. And we know that it is not sustainable. It can't go on for an indefinite period because Nevlec would collapse. So I want the public to understand, because there seems to be sometimes a perception out there, Ms. Washington, that government has a printing press somewhere in the Premier's office, and when you need money, you just produce it. So everybody comes to the government and says to us, well, listen, we need this, we need that, we need the other. We understand. We're not trying to minimize the concern, but I also want the public to appreciate that every concession that is given, every bill that you're told you don't have to pay, somebody else has to pay it. It has to be provided for in some way. So Nevlec has been suffering financially in a really, really bad way. And even now, we are looking to access loans to assist Nevlec to get over this very difficult period. So it isn't that it's free. It's something that comes at a cost. And in this case, it has come at a significant cost to Nevlec. So we do not know whether we can afford to extend these concessions, but we are looking to see what might be possible in the circumstances. The Newcastle Police Station, the last report I've had, I believe we shall have an opening in September of that police station because construction is substantially complete. I think they're concerned now just about outfitting of the station. So we're working on that, and I believe that a request has been made to the federal government to make some contribution to that final phase, bearing in mind, of course, that the substantial cost of that police station has been borne by the people of Nevis and the Nevis Island administration. And so we have asked the federal government to make a contribution in addition to the $1 million that they would have contributed, bearing in mind that that project is over $5 million, the overall cost of that project. So you can see that the significant contribution there financially has come from the NIA. So we have asked them to contribute to the outfitting, and we hope, of course, that that will be forthcoming, seeing that security continues to be a federal responsibility. I am advised that the project is within budget, but I will hope that I could have some more accurate numbers for you on another occasion. Or you can certainly check with the Deputy Premier, Alexis Jeffers, who was the person charged by the government to ensure that this project was brought to fruition. I want to commend him. We have put a lot of big projects in the hands of Alexis. The pier at Wally is one. This Newcastle station is another. We put, I believe there was a school kitchen at the Gingerland Primary School that was put in his hands, and he has always delivered. He's also delivered on some significant housing projects at Madden's, at University Heights, and he continues to deliver. They call him the Action Minister for a reason, and I want to commend him. I believe that the people of Newcastle and the people of Nevis will be proud of the Newcastle Police and Fire Station. It is, I believe, perhaps the best looking that I've seen, not only in St. Nevis, but in the region. It's a beautiful building that has been put there, and I would want to commend all involved and the leadership of our Deputy Premier on that particular project. You asked about the IMF and whether Nevis can go to the IMF. Nevis would not have standing as an island, as a constituent part of St. Kitts and Nevis to go to the IMF. So it will have to be St. Kitts and Nevis, or Nevis going with the support of the federal government, because the federal government would be the international entity. So we have not considered that option. I think what we have been doing thus far, we have been relying on whatever little revenue we have been able to earn. We have also been relying on our banks and our bankers, who have thus far been quite reasonable with us. In fact, I have a major meeting this afternoon with one of our bankers to determine the extent of their reasonableness. And we are hopeful that they will continue to be reasonable to allow us to get past this period, which is every year a difficult period in the summer, because that's normally what we're going to what we call the slow season. But this year, we've had no season, not a slow season, no season since March. So instead of going into a slow season normally in July, August, we have had no season since March. And you, members of the press and members of the public, try to consider what it looks like for an island so heavily dependent on tourism to have its entire tourism plant shut down since March, April, May, June, July, August, 6 months, September, 7. People are out of work, and yes, those like Four Seasons try their best to continue to provide some income to their workers, but even they, at the end of the day, had to engage in layoffs. So it's been very difficult, and you could imagine that our revenue as a consequence has suffered badly. The First Caribbean Bank and its closure, you asked if that will send a wrong signal, if I'm understanding you correct, to investors. I think not. First Caribbean was a player here for many years, but I think as far as banks go, it was not perhaps one of the most significant players. And I believe that my understanding is that this closure has to do with an impending takeover. And so they, it appears, are closing small branches around the region. This is business. This is how business is done now the world over. If you're too small, even if you're profitable, you're small, and therefore the idea is that you can be dispensed with. Of course, our concern is for all the people who work there, the 9 persons who are there, but also, of course, our concern is for the customers of First Caribbean, that they be adequately dealt with. So I don't know that it will send any dampening signal. I think that whilst they have decided to close their doors, as I pointed out, other banks are here and are doing well. The banking community is quite robust. And so I feel that the international community and international investors ought not to be concerned unduly that one of the smaller banks has decided that it will close its doors in Nevis and continue on St. Kitts. I just would like to add that if you hear that they only have 9 staff, you would realize that First Caribbean has been scaling back now for quite a while in terms of employment, in terms of staff. And a lot of the banks are moving to this online platforms where they tell you they don't necessarily want to see you. You can do everything online, pay your bills, etc. And the result of that is that they have less need for tellers and for persons at the bank itself. So the numbers are quite small, and that seems also to be the way of the world now in terms of minimizing the human component, maximizing the online or internet or computer component, and as a consequence, not many people have been impacted by this particular closure in terms of staff. We only have counted 9 persons impacted, and they are significant, don't get me wrong, especially in this environment. But clearly, it is not like, say, a Four Seasons where we're talking with hundreds of persons. So I don't see any dampening effect, and I'm hopeful that the international community and international investors will continue to do business with us and come and engage and see all that Nevis has to offer.
Mr. Premier, good morning. Jeremy Abel, Kiss FM. Just on this topic of CIBC exiting Nevis, do you think this is going to create a precedent that banks currently existing on Nevis, especially the international financial institutions, can just close up shop without engaging the government, whether it be staff layoff, the impact it's going to have on the local economy? And added to that, would you and your government and the Ministry of Finance on Nevis be engaging the bank to see, just to get a sense from them, why is it that they're closing, and do an assessment in terms of the impact this would be having on the Nevis economy, as well as those persons who are already in their system?
The question of consultation, clearly we would prefer if there's an opportunity for consultation, because consultation allows us to look and see what the difficulties are, and perhaps then allows us an opportunity to see what the government can do. That's why I have great admiration for the Four Seasons, because at every step they have tried to consult with us to let us know exactly what is going on. It would have been useful if First Caribbean had opted to consult, but that is a matter for them. They are a private business. The government has no shareholding in First Caribbean. And so in their wisdom, they took their decision. I'm not sure what that decision was based on, but my suspicion is that it's based on the takeover that is coming and based on the level of business that they might have been doing here. Nevis is a small jurisdiction, and many have argued that Nevis is overbanked because as a jurisdiction, we have several banks here. You have credit union, as I said, is it called FND, I believe you have here. They have a different name now, I'm sorry. Can't remember the new name. First Federal. So you have First Federal, you have credit union, you have the Bank of Nevis, you have RBTT, you have Republic Bank, and then you had First Caribbean. So you had 6 banks operating for 13,500 people. So it may be they took a decision that the market was too small for them. I don't know. Consultation for me is always preferable, but business is business, and people will do their business. And so I can't dictate to any institution, which is a private institution, what they should and shouldn't do and how they should go about it. And so there was no consultation, but we were informed, and the country manager did come on the morning to inform that the decision had been taken and to give me the dates as to when the closure would take effect. Would other banks follow suit? I can't tell you. But what I do know is that Nevis has had the wisdom over the years to have its own in the Bank of Nevis, which continues to be our bank. And so the hope would be that when all else fails, the Bank of Nevis will continue to stand with the people of Nevis, just as the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank has stood with the people of the Federation for all these years. So we have banks. We are not without banking. And as a consequence, as again, I don't think that we ought to be overly concerned that this departure creates any disastrous consequences for our local economy.
Okay, with regards to the impact the COVID-19 is having on the purse of the government, is there any consideration that the NIA will be looking to increase taxes on businesses in the short term to fill that gap that you're basically been losing, because nothing's going to rebound until probably sometime in 2021? And how far has the discussion gone between Charleston and Basse-Terre? I know you mentioned some time back that Charleston's not getting all of what it would have discussed previously in terms of the CBI. How has that discussion been going? And you talk about single-use plastics and plastic-free July. Additionally, is the government looking to increase taxes, or is it in the ambit of the NIA to actually increase taxes on Nevis with regards to single-use plastics? The economy has been hit. Is there any thought of further diversifying the economy where it can not be dependent or wholesomely dependent on the tourism sector, because we're seeing what's happening now? And the final question is, can you just give us a quick update with regards to how far the airport project has gone in light of COVID-19, and is the government cutting back on or putting a pause on a number of those infrastructure projects that started before COVID-19?
Thank you very much, Mr. Abel. You start with the vexed question of tax. I'm not an economist, I say that. But the advice that we've taken suggests that it would be the worst possible idea to try and increase taxes in this environment. Business is already struggling. You can't, as we say colloquially, take blood out of a stone. And so for businesses to be struggling and the government to increase taxes on them would make them, of course, struggle even more, if not close, which is not what we're seeking to do. So the concessions that have been provided, both federally and locally, have really been designed to provide a cushion for businesses. We have done things like decrease the corporate tax rate. We have done a decrease in the unincorporated tax. We've cut that by 50%. The idea really is to make it a little easier for businesses. That has applied to water, electricity. Everything that we could have done, we have done. And so the truth is that I think any talk of increasing taxes at this point would have a further negative effect on the economy, and it wouldn't help the government at all. So that is not under contemplation at this point. Discussions between Charleston and Bastille, those discussions continue. Indeed, I am scheduled to sit with the Prime Minister tomorrow, and I would hope that that is an item on the agenda that we will discuss to determine what we do going forward in terms of, as you say, the sharing of the citizenship by investment monies that have come in. I continue to speak about it publicly because for many years it appears that some were under an illusion that the CBI monies that came from the negotiation of our passport, which is our national patrimony, that somehow belonged to the government and people of St. Kitts. And I want to make it very clear that that passport says on it St. Christopher and Nevis. And for a lot of years, Nevis was locked out. People may criticize the Team Unity government for a variety of things, but it is the only government thus far that has at least tried. We may argue whether it has tried hard enough, but at least it has tried to bring some semblance of balance to that. And so for the first time, for example, we get a monthly amount that flows from CBI. The question is, of course, whether that monthly amount properly reflects a percentage of the inflows. But nevertheless, we get that monthly amount that comes. And this is the first time that that has happened in a sustained way. And so we have to be thankful for that, because the people of Nevis hitherto were completely locked out. So we used to stay on the pier here and look over at our sister island in St. Kitts and see CBI project after project, road, agriculture, airport, seaport, all kind of things being built over there from passport money. And Nevis over here kicking stone. But when Canada put their restrictions on travel, they didn't say only the people in St. Kitts who benefited. They said all of you now need a visa to come. And so when there was bad news, the people of Nevis suffered. But when the money flowed, the people of Nevis got nothing. And I believe it was in a recent campaign where I pointed out that over the period leading up to the federal elections of 2015, that the SIDF that then existed and was clearly heavily financed through the Citizenship by Investment Program, that they had given, and I use that term advisedly, granted nearly $100 million to various entities and institutions in St. Kitts, including Skelec, the St. Kitts Electricity Company, that was able then to pass on to Kittitians, reduce costs for electricity, all the while in Nevis, the division was paying through his or her nose for electricity because we had no such subsidy over here. And while the good people of St. Kitts got almost $100 million prior to 2015 in free money grant, the island of Nevis got two loans. Two loans, LOAN. One at 6% and one at 6.5%. So the SIDF was lending money to Nevis, but giving money to St. Kitts. I want to say a headline on that too. That is beyond atrocious for our passport money. We must not be shy about talking about these things, because some people, I hear some of the debate in the public square, they really feel that this is St. Kitts money. It's not. So when Nevisians speak up, it is not that we are trying to be difficult. It is not that we are trying to create division. We are saying, no, we want what is rightfully ours, a share. Because if you and your brother have an asset, you have a house and you sell the house, well, how one brother going to eat all the food? The other brother got to sit there and beg and say, Lord, please, please, I beg you, give me some of it. When both of you own the asset, the passport is a national asset. And if it's negotiated and hundreds of millions of dollars roll into Bastille, then I think that the blindest of us can see that there has to be some equity in the sharing of those resources. And so oftentimes I hear the talk because I understand it, and people look at projects in St. Kitts, and St. Kitts appears that it's shining, and Nevis, of course, is not shining as bright. But when you look at the underlying circumstances, it is the fact that the CBI monies have disproportionately been deployed on the island of St. Kitts. And that is why I have always said that we must encourage the kind of government which sees the nation of St. Kitts and Nevis, not the island of St. Kitts and the island of Nevis, but the nation of St. Kitts and Nevis. So that resources, when deployed, can be deployed across the board to help the entire country, not to develop one at the expense of the other. So those conversations are important conversations. They are conversations that have to continue, and I certainly will not relent until we have some acceptable sharing formula for those monies that are national assets, that belong to all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, belong as much to the people of Molyneux and the people of Newtown as they belong to the people of Charlestown and the people of Matchman's Road. It is our money. And so a lot of times I hear this talk about St. Kitts helping Nevis. Are you helping me if you're giving me some of what belongs to me? Think about it. How are you helping me if all I'm getting is some of what belongs to me? And the reason why that language has seeped in is because of how bad it was in the past when you got nothing. So now some feel that when I send something, it is a, it's some benefit. I'm almost offering charity to the people of Nevis. Well, you could offer me my own money and then call it charity. Let us, and this is what I want the press to look at, these kinds of issues. They may be difficult, thorny. And not because some of you are based on St. Kitts, you must tell the right story. Right? That is what I'm interested in, because this lopsided arrangement has not been fair for a very long time. And as I pointed out, that when prior to 2015, Nevis actually got nothing. When we did get something, we had to pay it back with interest from our own SIDF money. We're talking about single-use plastics and taxes on that. No, the NIA doesn't have the authority to tax in that way. And so what we're looking now is working federally to seek to get the kind of plastic-free environment that we have been talking about for some time. We believe that in St. Kitts now they are ready to move on this. There are a lot of considerations, we understand. But of course, with our new minister being Eric Evelyn, who is the minister with responsibility for the environment, we really expect that this is going to be a priority, and we are going to push on it to see how we can ban single-use plastics going forward. In terms of further diversification of the economy, yes, we are heavily dependent on tourism. But we have seen recently the government has been engaged with some developers to do other things in terms of other types of developments, commercial developments in particular. We continue to incentivize the construction sector to seek to get people to build homes, and we've announced a comprehensive set of concessions for construction. We've also invested very heavily in agriculture and provided a comprehensive set of concessions for those involved in agriculture, and I'm very pleased at the uptick thus far in that regard. And then, of course, financial services we also see as having some options for diversification. We have recently seen a new international bank, Nevis International Bank and Trust, which appears to be doing quite well. I'm told that they now employ close to 20 persons, which are good-paying jobs. We've also seen the Nevis Bank of Nevis International has been purchased by some investors, and they too appear to be doing well. And so we are hopeful that that is a sector that we can grow and develop, and that that sector will generate some jobs and revenue that allows us to diversify a bit away from tourism. But tourism is going to continue to be important. It's just that I suppose post-COVID we'll have tourism of a different kind, and so we'll have to adjust accordingly. Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, forgive me. I actually had it overleaf. The airport project, as I indicated at my last press conference, we have abandoned the initial arrangement that we had, the Memorandum of Understanding. Post-COVID, we really don't see that as being feasible. I think the world has changed significantly. And so what we're proceeding now is to see whether we can develop a private jet facility and a regional airport that can accept private jets, and regional traffic at the Van Summer International Airport. We have hired a firm called Perez Consulting, which was involved with the Argyle International Airport in St. Vincent, and Perez has been set to work to produce for us the design and the overall plan, and we are simultaneously looking for financing on that particular project. So the answer is that we're still very much in the planning stages of that. Perez has come. They will come again as soon as they're able to travel, but in the interim they have done quite a bit of work for us, and we hope in the fullness of time to have the designs that we can share with the public and the press.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning to you.
Just for clarification, sir, could you give us the amount of CBI proceeds that Nevis is supposed to get? Because we know that it would have increased. There was an announcement, I believe, back in 2019 or so, that it would have increased to about 35 million. So could you clarify that, sir? The other question is that in light of the drinks depot at TDC closing, will those employees be, maybe passed on to whatever subsidiaries TDC may have? And could you give us an update about the total revenue collected by the NIA thus far? And in light of that, sir, of course, we know that the NIA would have suffered very, very tragically, sir, in that regard. So could you give us perhaps a percentage or so of the loss that the NIA would have suffered? Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. My math, I was trying to do some quick math here. But the amount that we get monthly from the CBI proceeds was $2.5 million. So that works out to $30 million per year. That has been increased to $3.75 million. So $3,750,000 per month, which times 12. That is giving me some problems. That's how much money? It's 36, and then is that an additional 9? About 40, 45? Is that accurate? Okay, let it be said that the members of the press have suggested that 3,750,000 times 12 is 45. I believe it's less than 45, but anyway, that is what members of the press have advised. But that is the monthly sum. From 2.5, it has gone up to 3,750,000 per month from the CBI proceeds, right? And so that is what is currently being provided. You mentioned, what was the other question? Forgive me. I was busy trying to work the math, and I've lost my train of thought. The other issue that you raised was? TDC Drinks Depot. Yes. I have spoken to the people at the breweries in St. Kitts, and my understanding is that they will, of course, seek to employ those who would have been at the Drinks Depot as their first port of call, so to speak. Those who are there who are interested, those who can continue, they would seek to work with those initially. But I anticipate that they will also perhaps have job opportunities for others who may want to work there as well.
Good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning.
L.K. Hewlett, Department of Information. Can you give us an update with regard to the loan that the NIA was supposed to have gotten from the Social Security scheme with respect to housing?
Yes, we have just last week received the final tranche of that loan. I believe that final tranche was somewhere in the region of $3.5 million. And that final tranche has been received by the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation. You would recall that we have had two tranches of funds from Social Security, one at $10 million and one at $15 million. The idea behind those was to stimulate the housing market in Nevis. We were waiting on the final tranche. That has now arrived. And so we hope to continue the build out of projects such as University Heights, Maddens, and others as we go. We have opened up a new parcel of land in Hamilton that we hope to start the construction there soon. We also hope to have some new parcels opened shortly in the Brown Hill area and also here in Charlestown. There's a high demand for housing. Just to put it in context for you, I believe there's small development in Hamilton. It'd only be about 13 or 14 homes in that development. And they had, I am told, well over 100 applications. So there's a really high demand, and I appeal again to the private sector, the big companies like TDC and Hosfords and all of those, that they consider that the housing market in Nevis provides an option for them to invest. I have seen TDC, for example, they have done quite a few developments on St. Kitts. Well, Nevis people want housing too. And the people in Nevis can afford to pay for housing as well. So I invite them to come. The government is prepared to have a conversation with these companies and to say to them, this is what we're prepared to offer in terms of concessions. But come, because the market is being underserved and it's putting tremendous pressure on the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, which cannot keep up, because a lot of land now that the government would have had has been used up. So for us to go and buy land and then build on that land, the affordability gets impacted in a negative way. So this might be a niche for the big companies like the TDCs and Hosfords to step up. It's also a niche, of course, for developers on Nevis to step up. Many of them are spending money chasing after the CBI, client. But there are people right here who want housing and are not being able to access housing. So we think that that's a possible market for local investment. And we encourage, of course, those who can to step up and provide that kind of development on the island. And we are prepared as a government 100% to support by way of partnership in terms of concessions to make that project viable. And so we continue to encourage others to enter the market and provide housing for our people.
Mr. Premier, just one quick follow-up. In terms of the, I want to get an understanding of the revenue and the expenditure, going back to my colleague's question from Vaughan Radio. Roughly how much in terms of dollars and cents is the expense of paying public servants as against the revenue? Roughly how much in terms of salaries for public servants, and what percentage of the revenue is that expense?
Nevis suffers from the same perennial problem that we have throughout the region. Our wage bill is very high because, of course, the government does provide employment, and employment sometimes, as you know, acts as part of a safety net as well. I would say that we are in the region now of about 60 to 65% of our revenue we would spend in terms of our wage bill and the debt financing. Those are the two big ticket items that we have to deal with on a regular basis. That leaves us only with 3 to 4 cents out of every dollar to do everything else. And so you understand immediately how that looks in terms of the potential difficulty. Insofar as the actual revenue at this point is concerned, I don't have the dollar figure for you. But what I can tell you is that the people at Inland Revenue are telling us that our revenue is down compared to last year by almost 20%. So we are down by almost 20% across the board. Normally, as you would know, January, February, March, we would do very well from tourism. That has not happened this year. And so as a consequence, our revenue has been very badly affected.
Just one more question. Based on the responses from the general public, especially those in the tourism sector, that the reopening of the borders will mean a return to normalcy in the tourism sector. And I don't think that would be completely accurate. So can you give a synopsis of how it would look, in your opinion, once the borders reopen, and how long it will take, basically, for it to get back to any kind of sense of normalcy?
You ask a very important but difficult question to answer. And I say that because it is a process that almost you're learning as you go. I know it sounds cliche-ish, but it's really true. There's no manual for this. And the experience that one country has may not necessarily be the experience that another country has. Now, how will it look? Travel is going to change. I think that the mask that we're seeing is perhaps going to become standard. We are seeing the sanitization, the social distancing, physical distancing. I think all of those will become standard. We have seen various discussions happening, although I am not sure yet that any firm decisions have been taken about how you, for example, deal with passengers. It's a practical matter. People coming off a plane, how you engage with them, how you engage with their baggage, how you transport them. That is why we've started the training our taxi operators and our first line people, because they're the ones who are going to be upfront in terms of engaging with guests that are coming in. So this is an important question that you ask. Now, some of the hotels are telling us, and I just saw one study yesterday that suggests that there's pent-up demand, that people who have been locked down for all these months want to go somewhere. And certainly we could understand that. I hear people from Nevis getting on the boat just going to St. Kitts because they want to go somewhere. Kittitians are coming over, they want to go somewhere. People have been locked down, and by our nature, we want to go out. And so there is a suggestion that certainly in the short term, you may get more people interested in travel, particularly as St. Kitts and Nevis has done a phenomenal job in terms of containing COVID. I am very proud that, for example, on the island of Nevis, we've had no cases since the 7th of April. And I believe through the grace of God and the hard work of the COVID task force on Nevis, headed by Dr. Nisbet, Dr. Judy Nisbet, we've done incredibly well. So that could be a selling point, where people now say, well, let me look around the world and see where they know, where COVID is perhaps not as difficult. So we haven't had the runaway situation that you see being reported in the media in other tourism destinations. And I think that's a good point. But you can easily lose that. We're a small island, and so you could understand that when borders reopen, if you have a spike all of a sudden. I'm told that the great Usain Bolt contracted COVID, and the suggestion that it happened at a birthday party that he had, where lots of people were. You could imagine now each of those persons going back to their homes and what that could look like as you talk about the spread. So the truth is that we can't be sure, but we have to act with the best advice that we have. We have to be guided by the health officials, but also by those titans of the economy. Because we cannot simply say that we lock down our country forever because we don't want anybody to get COVID and people start to dead from hunger. Because if you're not working, how do you pay? There are lots of people in this island here right now who can't pay their rent, can't pay their electricity, can't buy food. So to tell them I'm keeping you safe by keeping the borders closed indefinitely is no comfort to them. Because come September, their children have to go to school. So we have to balance, and that is the difficult part. And the only way you balance is to take the best advice that you can get and make the decision. But any decision that you take in relation to COVID will have some risk. And I have said very clearly that when the borders reopen, we must prepare ourselves that we'll get cases. This idea about being COVID-free, it sounds good, but I don't think it will last. Because all the science is telling us that COVID is here to stay until they get a vaccine. So we just have, I think, to change the narrative and prepare our people. Our people are very resilient. And I feel that once our people have the facts, they will adjust. Who would have thought that the people of Nevis could be locked down in their house and told they can't even go outside the yard? Who? If you had told me that, I'd tell you impossible. But with the proper sensitization, proper education, the proper information, I believe that people responded in a positive way. They recognized what was called for and they were able to comply. And so for me, members of the press, I feel that it is difficult to predict how tourism is going to look. I get the sense that certainly those involved in the industry think that there will be a spike in demand, initially at least, and I believe that it will be a selling point for us if we can continue to maintain our status as being a low-risk jurisdiction for COVID. And that is what we'll have to seek to do. In the interim, like I said, with our new ambulances, I believe I go to St. Kitts, it might be on Monday, for a handover of some 14 additional ventilators from the United States government and the government and people of the Republic of China and Taiwan. And we're hopeful that we can build out our capacity in a substantial way. So the idea really is that we continue to prepare ourselves, prepare our people, but at the same time we understand that we cannot remain closed and locked off from the world forever. Our economy would completely collapse if that were the case. And so that is where we are. Any other questions? Okay? There are no other questions. Do I see you, Ms. Washington, about to get up? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think today was short and sweet. It's 11:30. And so I want to thank each and every one of you for coming, for your questions. I know we've had some technical glitches. I would want to apologize for those. We'll get it right the next time for sure. And to thank each and every one of you. Thank NTV for being here. Thank VON Radio and all the other stations that cover this monthly press conference. This press conference is an exercise in good governance. It has never happened in Nevis before. It is one of the innovations that we've introduced. And we will continue to do so, to take your questions and to interface with you and to bring you accurate information as to what is happening on the island of Nevis. So thank you and have a wonderful day.